Mayor.
Okay, meeting call to order. This is the regular workshop meeting of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Prospect Heights on Monday, October 9th, 2017, Columbus Day at 6:34 p.m. in the council chambers, Prospect Heights City Hall, 8 North Elmhurst Road, Prospect Heights, Illinois. I'm going to take a roll call, see if we have a quorum here. So let's check it out. We have Pat Ludvigson.
Here.
We have Laura Messer. Here. Larry Rosenthal.
Here.
We have Matt Dolick.
Here.
And Scott Williamson provided prior email notification. He's not going to be here this evening. And Mayor Helmer is available electronically. Is that correct, Mayor?
That is correct.
Okay. So we've called to order. We have a quorum. And now we are going to appoint a mayor pro temp. So we are going to take a.
I'd like to appoint Alderman Laura Messer as mayor pro tem.
Second.
Okay.
Do so.
I'd like to take a roll call. Alderman Rosenthal,
Aye.
Alderman Ludvigson,
Aye.
Alderman Dolick,
Aye.
and Alderman Messer. Abstain. Okay. Well, the vote is for Ms. Messer to be the mayor pro temp. So, Ms. Messer, I hand the meeting over to you.
Okay, looks like the next thing we have is the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Alderman Dolick. Okay, Joe, do you want to take us through what we have next on the agenda?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Next item of business is item 4, approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of September 25th, regular council meeting minutes, and the minutes of September 25th, regular city council executive session minutes, but not for public release.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Do we need any discussion? If not, can we get a roll call?
Yes. Alderman Rosenthal,
Aye.
Alderman Ludvigson,
Aye.
Alderman Dolick,
Aye.
Alderman Messer.
Aye.
Okay. Passes 4-0.
We have no presentations or appointments confirmations this evening. Do we have any citizen concern comments?
No, we do not.
Which brings us to staff elected officials and commission reports.
Okay, Alderman Ludvigson, do you have anything to report this evening?
No report.
Alderman Dolick?
No report, thank you.
Alderman Rosenthal?
No report.
All right, I have no report. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Just a quick thank you for all the well wishes I received over the last 2 weeks. And it reminds me that it helps you get better. And I appreciate all those that sent cards and fruit baskets and flowers. And I thank everyone for doing that.
Okay, well, we're glad you're getting better, and we're looking forward to having you back with us. Okay, Chief Steffen, do you have anything to report?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Deputy Clerk Schulteis?
Just one thing, and it's a compliment to our Public Works Department. The property manager of Briarwood Terrace Apartments sent us an email saying whoever did the fall decor at Prospect Heights, on the Prospect Heights signs, did an awesome job. They look so cute.
Very nice. Great. Our attorney, Kevin Carney, sorry.
No report, thank you.
Joe?
No report, thank you.
Wendy?
No report.
Mr. Peterson?
Just real quick, I want to give a quick update on the Quincy Park project. Of the 591 units at Quincy Park, over 400 of them have complied and received their building permits and have had their inspections done. So we're going to do one more phase of mailing and hopefully get this all wrapped up by the end of the year. So then every unit at Quincy Park will have a new electrical service panel that's being required by the HOA, Homeowners Association's insurance company. So we're getting very good compliance, but it's been a very busy summer and fall.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Peter?
No report.
Mark? Mike?
Couple quick things. When I left last week, we're on the last month of the reconciliation, so hopefully that'll be complete. We'll move forward to working on some draft reports for year-end 17 and year-to-date. Hopefully we'll be starting that pretty soon. Secondly, we are starting to compile the data we need for the annual treasurer's report, which has to be published in the paper within 6 months of our fiscal year end. So by 10/31, it has to be published in the paper. Lastly, Joe, I, and the city engineer met with IDOT last week to go over a number of outstanding items related to motor fuel tax. There are a number of projects out there where paperwork needed to be completed, some of them dating back as far as the late 90s. So we are in the process, working with IDOT to try and get as many of those closed out as quickly as we can. And the only other issue that came up with that, there were a few questions related to the service charges that the city was applying or using for MFT funds, and we're going to have to look into that and clear that up as well. That's all I have.
Okay. And Mr. Rich Tibbetts, are you with us this
I'm
evening?
sorry, he's out.
Oh, he's out?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for the reports then.
No items on the consent agenda, which brings us to old business. Item 10A, this is a second reading of a staff memo and ordinance approving a text amendment to sections and definitions of permitted uses in the single-family residential district. It's a recommendation from the Plan Commission. It allows community integrated living facilities, adult needs housing, and it allows them in the residential district, subject to certain city regulations involving distance between units, state licensure requirement, and there's a few others.
We do have a representative from Aurora Home Care who is here at the first reading, should the council have any questions.
Hi, my name's Irene Broiga. I'm here representing Aurora. It's a Sela home located in Prospect Heights, 223 Wolf Road.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Does anyone have any questions for the representative? No? Okay. Can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Alderman Rosenthal.
Aye.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Ludwigson.
Aye.
Alderman Messer.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which brings us to item 10B. This is a staff memo and ordinance establishing a vacant foreclosed property registration program. This is also second reading. And the basis for this is whenever there's a foreclosed property, there's certain things that the city gets involved in, such as maintaining landscaping, property maintenance, and so forth. And by having a property registration program, this makes it much easier for the city to identify, to communicate, which ultimately helps the neighbors because we're able to get the grass cut and other items taken care of.
Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance establishing the vacant and foreclosed property registration program?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please. Oh, sorry. Discussion? None? Roll call, please.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Rosenthal.
Aye.
Alderman Ludwigson.
Aye.
Alderman Messer.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
The next item is 11, new business, and item 11A is request for council authorization for expenditure in excess of $10,000 for Tourism District landscaping, fall plantings, and enhancement. Last year, we took competitive requests for proposals for the work that's done in the Tourism District and the islands and the embankments. The lowest response was from Landscape Concepts, and we're asking for consideration tonight, authorization tonight, for additional work for them. And it's a request of the Tourism Bureau. It's for fall plantings, mums, and I think there might be a few other fall plantings, and also to include the island that's at Apple Drive in Milwaukee in the area of landscaping.
Do we have a motion to approve the expenditure in excess of $10,000?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
One question. Is that area where they're going to be improving the landscaping, does that have anything to do with some of the other work that is planned for that area? For example, the roads and things like that? Or am I in the wrong area?
No, you're absolutely, you're in the correct area, and you're right on target, because that was identified, Apple Drive, as one of the streets needing improvement. I believe it was scheduled for 2020, but that's the pavement. This is the island. So the island work, there's no work scheduled for the island, but certainly the street is targeted for repavement.
So the pavement project will not impact the island?
That's correct. Yeah, we won't be doing anything twice here.
Alderman Ludwigson?
Joe, I don't remember if we signed up with Landscape Concepts for multi-year, or was that optional when we did the contract at the beginning of the year for them, for the maintenance work that they're doing? So is it automatic for next year? Was it?
My recollection was, yes, it was, I believe, for 3 years.
I know we bid it that way. I didn't know if
Yeah.
we signed it that way.
Yeah.
So would this be something we do next year then, again?
Well, yeah, we didn't include this. This is additional. This is a request that came from the Tourism District subsequent to our RFP. So I think we would be, if this is also requested next year, we'd also be coming back to the council with it.
Okay. Okay.
It's not in the original scope of work.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Anyone else? A roll call, please.
Alderman Messer,
Aye.
Alderman Ludwigson.
Aye.
Alderman Rosenthal.
Aye.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Which brings us to item 12, our workshop items for discussion tonight. Item 12A is discussion of commercial truck parking regulations. And that, as you're aware, that's a committee that's headed by Alderman Williamson, and also from the Community Development Department, Director Peterson, and also Mike Porzicki of Code Enforcement. For tonight, I'm just going to ask Mr. Peterson if you could just give us a little status report of what the committee's looked at, what you're proposing, and kind of a potential timetable.
Thank you. Alderman Williamson, Inspector Porzicki, and I met a couple times, and we've spoke by phone. We heard what the council said as to what we wanted to accomplish, and that was to provide clear, concise, enforceable language to control the parking of the commercial vehicles in the residential districts, that the restrictions not place undue hardship on the residents for noncompliance, and that the amendments and any requirements wouldn't be a burden to the code enforcement officer, such as some towns actually say the truck can be no longer than 19 feet 6 inches, no more than 7 feet 6 inches high. Well, that takes a lot of time to go out and measure for compliance. So we were trying to look at ease in which we could comply. So after a few discussions, we looked at what was the other goal, and that was to take some of these commercial vehicles off the driveway and put them in the side yard or rear yard or in a garage. And the majority of the single-family properties in town would accommodate that, and if they didn't, there would be a process through the zoning variation process to seek that. Otherwise, they'd have to seek other other places to park their vehicles. So we looked at putting them in, one of the amendments being recommended is moving them to the side and rear yard. And that would be for the D plates. B plates would still be allowed, vans and such, and I'll get into another point a little later. We are also recommending a more defined way on how to properly screen specifics such as solid board fence or board on board or non-deciduous trees so that when we tell somebody to screen it, they know exactly what we mean, not just that it's naturally in compliance with the natural scape. We also added a section that will address open and closed trailers and equipment, because that's been the number of issues is snow plows, generators, trailers filled with construction materials, that type of thing left out. So we're proposing to add a section there. The last one, which may come into play, is a recommended section that's talking about signage, ladders, and other equipment. And the way that the discussion went, and that any vehicle that has commercial signage, whether it was a B plate or a D plate, would have to meet the same requirements as the D plate trucks and parking behind the house. This could get into an area of some violations of free speech, because commercial signage is protected not at the same level as personal free speech, but there are some considerations that have to be taken into account. And then, we do have a lot of folks in town that have work, they don't have a commercial company at home, but they're required to have their commercial vehicle, their van, GE Repair. We've got a couple other places that they don't control the truck because they don't buy it. It's given to them, they have to have it on their site, so, and it's legal because it's a B plate. So that will be something that's up for discussion. So I'm looking tonight for direction, because to move forward, we would have to apply for a text amendment, and the city would be the applicant bringing this to the Plan Commission. And timing-wise, if the direction comes from the council to support the text amendment, we would be on for the November Plan Commission as a text amendment, and then come back at the first meeting in December with recommendations from the PZBA. Also, too, we would like to hear from council if you feel it's too restrictive, if you feel it is meeting the stated purposes, what we were trying to accomplish, if there's anything that you guys see that we might miss or need to take a look at before we go forward with the text amendment application. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Alderman Ludwigson?
My only comment would be, I get the commercial vehicles and somebody's got to drive it home, I understand that. But sometimes I see in towns, I see in Prospect Heights, multiple trucks of the same type in a driveway, and there's the chances of, two people working at the same place with the same truck, that gets to be, to me, a little more suspect that something's going on at that location. I understand the guy's a plumber, he's got a truck at home. I don't have a problem with that, but when we see multiples in one driveway, that's a flag.
So you would be concerned about the number of
them.
Okay.
The other thing too is I get the free speech issue with having what you want on your truck. We had a few years back, right across the street from Hersey, actually just east of Hersey a little bit, there was a car that had a very specific advertisement on it that was not good to have near the school or any place. If it was next door to me, I'd have been upset. And if we get into, we select what people, if we say anybody can put anything they want on there, do we run the risk of having things we don't want on there and not being able to do anything about it? So I don't know how we address that. I think you remember what I was talking about. So I don't know how you would address that in this when you say you could have anything you want on your truck or vehicle as far as advertisement. So maybe if council can, I'll explain to you what that was about, and you could tell me if we can be if we have to be specific, or if that could be something we could just say in good judgment you can't have on your truck.
So let me just jump in. What Dan was alluding to is that there was a recent Supreme Court decision, well, relatively recent Supreme Court decision regarding political signs, and that's a lot of municipalities have signs saying that you can't have elections, or have ordinances saying you can't have election signs up 10 days after an election. That was struck down. You can have political signs up or any kind of sign up on your property, and the only way that you could really restrict it is by shape and size and that sort of thing. Now, commercial speech is different. It's subject to less scrutiny, and that's what Dan was alluding to. Now, if it's obscene speech, that would certainly be able to be regulated under intermediate scrutiny for commercial speech. But I think what the issue is, if it's a blanket ban on commercial signage on a vehicle, that might be an issue where we'd have to do further research and see if that's feasible or legal, and I'm not sure it is. But in a situation where you have obscene speech or something like that, I don't think you would have difficulty saying no obscene speech on your commercial vehicle.
Okay.
What's obscene then?
You know it when you see it?
I mean, that's a serious question. And I guess you'd have to have something in terms of.
There are lots of cases about what is obscene and what isn't obscene. We don't have to put a test in, but when I say you know when you see it, that's one of the tests that came out of the Supreme Court. It's old now, but if you say obscene speech, that's a legal standard that would be able to be applied. Now, if somebody wanted to challenge it, that'd be a different story, but.
I'm just curious, where's the definition of what's obscene? Or is there a definition?
It's usually community standards. It's a whole, there's not a hard and fast definition.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Alderman Ludvixson, is that all you had?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Alderman Dalek?
Just another quick question, staying on that same subject of signage. Is there a difference when it is within, for instance, a condo community? For instance, where I live, there are very specific rules about what you can have, and going back to the political signs, they have very specific rules. Has that just not been challenged, or are there different rules or regulations between what might be considered a private community or a citywide ordinance?
So generally, if an HOA has specific covenants limiting certain kinds of vehicles or signage, that's usually a private contract that doesn't really, the city can't, doesn't affect the city's enforcement. These restrictions are on the city's enforcement abilities, not on a private organization's enforcement of its own private covenants. That's the general answer for HOAs.
Rob Roy, for example, has those kinds of restrictions, and it's a fundamental law, or charter, whatever.
Well, the difference between Rob Roy, though, and like Quincy Park, let's say, would be you guys meaning Quincy Park, issue stickers to park, don't you, or? No?
But in Quincy Park, we do.
Well, no, Rob Roy doesn't, but Quincy Park does.
Quincy Park
So you
does.
could, if we have an agreement with the multifamily residences, that the police patrol don't you have agreements where you patrol their lots?
We do. We have agreements by specific homeowners association or apartment complex management companies.
So if they don't issue a sticker, then they can't park there anyway, and the police would be able to still ticket them, right, if they don't have a sticker? Is that how it goes?
The other issue is Officer Berzicki was out this evening doing his later evening checks, and he just sent me a text, and right now we have approximately 35 sprinters, D-plates, 22 with ladders or logos, and 2 taxis, all in off East Old Willow in the parking lots. And those folks don't have a way to comply other than moving their vehicles somewhere else if we go forward with this ordinance. So that would be, unless we had a section about multifamily housing, but where can a person who has a D plate who lives at, let's say Willow Falls, for example, park their vehicle, and it's a legal D plate, they can have one, and that person can have one, what do we do with those folks? That's another question that we'll have to address.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Alderman Rosenthal?
I'm trying to understand what you just said and what impact it has on what we're dealing with.
This ordinance is addressing, the way our additional parking regulations ordinance deal is not zone specific, it's for all residential parking. So if we're gonna outlaw or require D plates to be parked in garages or backyards, or no ladder racks or signage on vehicles that aren't in a garage, right now, those ones that are in the common area parking at Willow Falls, Willow Heights, any, those types of places, wouldn't have a place to comply with the ordinance, and therefore, it would be a burden on those residents. So I think it could be addressed with delineating between an R1 and an R2 family district, but the way our current ordinance is written or is proposed, it would have an impact on those folks.
So does that mean that will present a problem that will come back to this council in some way?
It would be up for discussion at the Plan Commission as part of the text amendment process.
So basically, where you live, if you had a commercial vehicle, what is it, B plate?
B plates are passenger or lower weight, under
Are those
8,000.
ones we're talking about right now, though?
Some of them are B plates with ladder equipment, ladder racks, and that would be problematic. The other commercial, because part of the recommendation is any vehicle, B or D plate, that has ladder racks and signage would also have to be screened from view.
So like the taxis too?
Yeah.
So, like where you live or where I live, if someone, like I know where I live, that someone has a taxi, our association allows it to be there, they just have to park in the back where the guest parking is. If we approve them to go forward with the text amendment as is, that person would not allow to be able to park their vehicle there anymore. Since it's not a single-family residence, you don't have a home to park it on the side or in the backyard, so now you have nowhere to put your vehicle. So we would either need to have more discussion on the topic, or as Dan suggested, maybe differentiate between the multifamily units versus a single-family dwelling, because I believe all the homeowner associations have their own rules with the commercial vehicles, and most of them are usually pretty strict with what they'll allow as it is, because otherwise you're gonna have people with vehicles and they have no place to put them.
So by adopting this ordinance, if I understand correctly, that means that there's gonna be people who have been parking vehicles to no longer park vehicles, and what kind of an impact is that gonna be on them? And is that something the community wants?
Yeah. So like in Rob Roy, if Rob Roy allows someone that has a taxi car to bring their car home, and there aren't any issues, but we passed this text amendment that says they can't. I mean, Rob Roy's a little different because you actually have driveways and garages and everything, but in the condo complexes, we don't. So if the car is parked legally per the association rules, the city amendment, unless we differentiate between the associations and the single-family dwellings, they wouldn't be allowed to park there. And they can't screen it. There is nowhere for them to screen it. They have no option.
So my question then is, if we pass it as is, we're gonna have to deal with this again, I'm sure.
Yeah, and tonight it's not action to pass the amendment, it's giving me the direction to go forward and things to bring to the PZBA to make sure we get incorporated. So when it comes back, hopefully we'll have addressed this before it comes back.
But keep in mind also that just because, we're making the assumption that any single-family R1, would that be single-family, would be able to do the screening. There might be situations where we have somebody who wants to park a D truck, but their lot does not allow them to set up screening, so they wouldn't be able to either, no differently than if you lived in a multifamily setting. So, yeah, we're restricting it, it's a special use, not special use under our technical terms, but we're saying there's a special consideration, if you do this, you can park this here, but if my yard isn't big enough to put a swimming pool, that doesn't mean I can, you know, violate the city code and put a swimming pool in it. If you can't do it based on your lot configuration, you just can't do it. That's all there is to it, so. I don't think that that means that if you live in if you live in a multifamily, chances are you're not wanting to park 4 trucks, you know, work trucks in your, it's not what it's set up to do. So I'm not sure there really needs to be a differentiation. I mean, unless the homeowners associations feel that they want to allow that, which I can't imagine.
So I know the associations, at least the couple that I know of, and Matt can probably speak more to his and Larry to his, but I mean, they have restrictions not only on the type of vehicle you can park, but how many vehicles per unit, period. And, I mean, you have to have a special sticker just to be parked on the lot too, and they do actively go through and have vehicles towed that aren't supposed to be there. So, I mean, my concern, and like, I mean, you brought up a good, you know, point, Pat, just because it's a single-family dwelling, they may not have the space on the side or on the back, and then what kind of an expense is it to, if it can't be on grass and other things that I read, for them to get it done? Do they have the finances to be able to do it, to comply? So, I mean, I know we're trying to improve things, but I think we need to each put ourselves in the shoes of someone that may have one of these vehicles and think how it would affect us if you're just not able to comply. And maybe we can't be as strict as what some of the changes are that we're trying to make.
Yeah, I think the toughest thing for me, as much as I want to see things improve here, I don't want to see something that in a broad sense really negatively affects a person's livelihood. If we suddenly put something in place where we're basically saying you've got to move or just get rid of this vehicle, I hate to see that. But if there is some compassion, if we can find some way of enforcing this and improving the situation without impacting people in that negative way. And that's something that we would have to discuss, you know.
Well, I think there were some changes in there that are okay. I think it's just these ones that we kind of need to maybe look more.
I think the problem may be smaller than we think, and I think as long as we're not growing it, you know, and we say, if you have one of these situations here now and your lot is unable to comply, okay, you can stay. I hate to have registration of illegal vehicles in town, but if there was a way that we could say, I don't want somebody moving in here to say, oh, I can park 3 D-plate trucks in Prospect Heights, that's where I'm gonna go. So I think it's good to make the change and then say that if you are existing and you cannot comply, we're gonna have a heart and say, okay, you're one case where you can't do it, we understand it, so as long as you use it, you know, we do that now. We have, I can't tell you how many grandfathered, I put it in quotes because I'm not sure that term really applies anymore, the businesses in town that operate as landscapers and that in town that truly have changed hands and aren't grandfathered when Prospect Heights became a city to allow them to continue to operate as a landscaping firm in town and use their lot for that. But I don't want the problem to grow. We had a recent problem that was here for decades, I think, with the wildlife agency that parked ABC 10 trucks in their front yard every night. And, you know, that, obviously that was, you know, when you see it, it wasn't right, but I don't want to go that direction because we are allowing it. If somebody's got it and it's one of those gray areas and we're going to make a hardship on them by making this, okay, maybe that one that can't do anything about shielding or screening to our code can stay until they move. So
I think we've been very reasonable in our enforcement processes, and I think most folks have the ability to seek the alternatives and the variations. And in my 2 years here, I don't think this is as big a problem as it's been made out to be. Just we haven't had the complaints, we haven't had the calls. However, it has been brought to the attention of the council, and that's why we're acting on it. But I don't think it's been an issue, and when it has been an issue, Officer Przicki has gotten really good compliance with getting illegal vehicles moved or brought into compliance. So, you know, this has been one of those projects that's been somewhat, is it a solution looking for a problem or not? So, yes, there are a few cases that we have to step up enforcement on, but we have been doing that and have gotten good results in the 2.5 years I've been here.
So to clarify then, there's nothing really that we're voting on tonight.
No,
It's giving you some direction as to what to expect or what to do in this area with the final thing that's presented to the council.
the next step in the process is if we're gonna go forward with these changes, is we have to actually bring them forward to the PZBA as an application for a text amendment. It'll go through a public hearing process. The PZBA will make a recommendation with, maybe as is, with conditions, maybe they'll deny it, but then it'll come back to the council for final action.
So by the council being the applicant, do we then as a council vote to approve that being submitted to the PCBA?
The council is not the applicant. The city is the applicant.
Or the city?
City.
Well, then, who makes?
Staff is the applicant, and then council can weigh in one way or the
All
other.
right, I understand now. All right.
Mayor Helmer, do you have any comments?
I'm good. I've looked at this with Mike Persnicki and with Dan several times already, and we have a council that'll make their decisions.
Okay.
So is the direction then for you to differentiate between the R1 and R2 and try to carve up the exceptions?
Well, that was one of the things that the committee did not get to and the discussion didn't lead to. And in drafting the recommended changes, it became very obvious. So I just wanted to make sure that as I was going forward, because when this first came up this summer, one of the things that I heard was that from the council was that any changes should not be detrimental or have a negative impact on the folks that are working here in town or need the vehicles. So that was the goal with this as we went forward. And what I heard tonight gives me direction on how to tweak it and things to bring forward. And I'm sure when it goes up for public hearing.
I think though, that just the term you use about not being detrimental to somebody, the only way I see, the only reason I would use that term myself would be to say the plumber who drives the truck home, the electrician who drives the van home. But when you're talking D-plate trucks, when you're talking about something that's already, but this is probably a little more, my only two issues are the size of trucks and how many commercial marked trucks are parked in one location. Those are my issues. So
Okay.
I agree, I don't want to hurt a guy who lives here who's an electrician and drives a truck home, but by the same token, I don't want him to have somebody to have a dump truck here either, in their front yard. So that to me is not, we can't protect that kind of
Got it.
detrimental.
I agree completely.
So do we want to direct Dan to maybe work with the committee and kind of tweak it and come back to us first before going to the PZBA? Or do you want him to just tweak it based on the conversations we've had and take it to the PZBA?
Is this going quickly because of stickers? Is that the reason why?
That's a secondary thought, but it was just because this was raised this summer, I wanted to get it going. Timing worked right, and it does fall in line with the stickers, because we will tweak our forms to have people identify more clearly the type of vehicle they have, because right now, we really don't delineate clearly in our application between passenger vehicles and D plates, so. Yeah, that's a secondary
I don't think it would hurt for you to draft the ordinance, because I think at that point it would be a minor tweaking that maybe you could send out to everybody to look at.
Yeah, that can be done. And then I'm sure we'll have some feedback if this does go out and get, at the public hearing, we'll probably have some comments at that time as well.
But the process is to go to PCBA first.
Correct.
And then based on the discussion, was everyone in agreement to differentiate between R1 and R2? And then with the single family would kind of be case by case that he would look at? Is that the route we're going with how he's presenting it, or?
Well, it's up to the multifamily. I don't know if they feel that's a hardship. I mean, are you gonna allow D-plated trucks? Do you even allow D-plated trucks?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I think the associations already have pretty strict rules, but the way it is now, I mean, like I know in our complex and I believe 2 of the other complexes I've seen where there at least is like a taxi cab that the associations allow to be parked there.
Yeah, I don't
This
think
would
that
not
would
allow
change
it, and
here.
they have
No.
nowhere.
That wouldn't change this. I think that's something that would still be allowed. I think the only issue is quantity of marked trucks and D-plate or bigger is all it really comes down to. And I don't think you guys allow D-plate anyway. I can't imagine you allow a D-plate truck.
There is an area of town that does allow them, and D-plates for their tenants, and those are their vehicle. It's a work truck / personal vehicle. It's not a problem, the complexes don't have a lot of them, but we do see it in our annual inspections of the multifamily rental, and just by this quick survey. But it's not an overwhelming, you got 5 D-plate trucks in a complex that has 800 and some odd units, so it's a small issue, so.
Well, if you want to address it in the ordinance to say that if you're a multifamily, the association will deal with how to handle a D-plate.
Okay.
And if they want to do that, they want to do that, but I would think, I wouldn't go through the exercise of describing what kind of screening you want and everything else if you're just going to exempt them in the R1 and say that they can park there. So I think, at least in the R1s I'm looking at,
Okay.
they go the screening route, and if the multifamilies want to deal with it on their own through their association, that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion on this topic? Okay, moving on.
Next item is the review of the city liquor code.
So this is, after the last workshop meeting, where the code was discussed. I got a few comments back, or a few comments were relayed to me regarding changes and questions. The changes, I made all the changes, the only outstanding issue was whether or not a BYOB license would qualify for a gaming license. I did some research and determined that that wouldn't be the case. I confirmed that with the gaming board. So if the city does decide to create a separate BYOB license category, that would not allow that that business or that licensee, quote unquote, to get a gaming license for video gaming. So with that settled, I'm going to make the final change to the liquor code ordinance, and we'll recirculate it for review. So all the comments from the last meeting should be incorporated at that point. Any other comments regarding that or questions?
I have one comment, not to the changes specifically, but Alderman Ludvigson, I know that every time someone comes in for a liquor license, the whole video gaming thing ties in. So I'd been doing some thinking about it, and I kind of ran it by our attorney this evening. So my understanding is because if your home rule status, the municipality has authority to allow an entity to get a liquor license, but not allow them to have the video gaming. But because of our non-home rule status, we have no authority or control over it, even though we have the responsibility of it. So I had thought if there was a way that we could get a petition or something, get together with the other non-home rule communities who have the same issue and would also like to have control over it, if there's some way that we can, get together, get a petition, take it to the state to try to get it where even non-home rule municipalities, we can say, we'll authorize you, we'll approve the license for your restaurant, we'll authorize the liquor license, but just because the state's authorizing the video gaming, it still needs our authority too. This way, if there's a restaurant that we want to allow to open and get the liquor license, but not the video gaming, we're not deterring businesses from coming in, but we have more control and authority over the video gaming. The state still controls the tax distribution and everything in the municipality. I don't agree with the state that we don't have authority over controlling, just because they get a liquor license, the state can give every single one of them a video gaming license. So to try to work with the issues, that we've had on the council with this, I thought maybe if, Joe or someone on the staff can maybe reach out to the,
There's
administrators
a
of the other
Northwest Municipal
municipalities.
Conference subcommittee for non-home rule communities that, maybe, I know the mayor goes to those meetings, I believe. to the Northwest Municipal Conference, maybe we can send a letter on behalf of the city asking that, the one thing I know from being here so long, I get what you're saying, it doesn't make any sense. Why would Springfield tell us that we can't control it, but Mount Prosper, Darlington Heights, Wheeling, Glenview, all of them can? It's one of the goofiest. Home rule is one of those things that just makes, it's an old-fashioned thing that makes no more sense. Kind of like, I'm gonna say it out loud, townships, but, it's probably won't go anywhere. I would like to do it that way too, but the chances, the state does not grant a lot of exemptions for non-home rule communities to have the same powers as home rule. That's one of our big problems, is that we can't do that. But I would like.
Well,
to
but
do
then the
that.
state is kind of, you know, they're making it so businesses can't come in to the non-home rule community. So, I mean, it's hurting businesses, it's hurting, you know, the local municipalities.
Right.
I mean,
No.
maybe if we had a strong enough fight. Come on, Pat, where's your fight? You fight with me on everything else. I'm trying to help you on this
I
one.
went to Springfield about 10 years ago to actually testify in front of a committee on, it was a home rule issue about hotel tax. About the same thing. Why could the state tell us that we have to be treated differently than Wheeling with our hotel tax, and we can't do things with it? And it went absolutely nowhere. But
Well, and with the tax, it's a money issue, so while I don't agree with it, I can see them
well, the
being
state
more
likes
focused
this-
on that, but at
the
least
state
this
loves
is not.
video gaming, so they want us to have 100 of these. So.
Yeah, but then we can tell them, fine, then we're not gonna allow any restaurants or we're
Well,
just not gonna allow any liquor
what I would
licenses,
like
and then
to
they're
do
not gonna
is-
get any money at all.
Just treat it like we treat our own liquor licenses, and that open and close our ability to have video gaming, just like we would change our rules on anything else. Once we have somebody that comes to us that we want to have it, we restate that we want to allow video gaming. Once we pass that liquor license and they apply and get their license, we close it to say we are no longer video gaming, because everybody else is grandfathered in, they won't take it away, but Mike didn't like that 2 years ago. When
Yeah, I thought that that was,
I don't like
I didn't
it
think,
either.
I didn't think legally we could do that,
I think
but
you're better off doing it the zoning route.
can you tell us about the zoning route real quick?
Yeah, and this is obviously a topic that's come up many times, and this is not a unique problem to Prospect Heights. The line from the state is that the way you control video gaming is through your liquor licenses. So if you don't want additional video gaming establishments, don't hand out any liquor licenses. But as Alderman Messer has pointed out, then you could be preventing businesses like restaurants or just bars that aren't really concerned about video gaming from opening. We had prepared a memo, I think it was over a year ago at this point, regarding options for the city in regard to video gaming, and one of the suggested options was possibly regulating it through zoning, making it a special use or something like that. That was not the route that was chosen, but it's something we could look into again in the interim. I don't know if in a year things have changed, the layout has changed, we just haven't looked at it since then. But that was the one other option that we suggested to the city to explore in greater detail. But yeah, I think that if you're looking for the kind of power that home rule municipalities have, it's frankly not available to non-home rule municipalities unless there's a change to the statute.
I would be in favor of even going ahead and making that petition and seeing what we could do, and even going forward and saying, and having them defeated, knowing it'll be, and if we know for certain we defeated, it might be a good thing to have on the record that it was defeated, because if there is a movement in the future in Prospect Heights for movement for home rule again through a referendum process, you got an argument there that says to certain people that, look, at businesses are being they're preventing businesses from coming in here because we're not home rule, because we don't have this, that, and the other thing. So we may be able to turn that defeat, if it becomes a defeat, into a potential opportunity if there's a move in the future for home rule here. That's my opinion anyway.
Joe, do you think that's something feasible that we could look into pursuing?
Sure, sure. It's, I'll do a little research and see what avenues there might be and talk to a few people.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The only other thing that, I mean, I wish there was a way we could regulate it. I've said, why don't we just make them get all kinds of kitchen equipment? Because if they're really gonna be a restaurant, that's what they have to have. And the ones that go in don't get the kitchen equipment to really be a restaurant. The last few that we've had, the small ones. But the only other way I could see we could do this, and I don't know if it's legal or not, but can we just watch how they're collecting their money? If they apply for a special use to have a restaurant, which is required in the city, you have to get that passed. And then they turn around in a year and under our own places for eating tax, collect $300, $400, $500. To me, that's a shell organization that's operating as a restaurant that there's no way they could, for the purposes of having the video gaming. Because video gaming is huge. I mean, it's public record. Home bars getting close to $200,000 a year in their income from video gaming. I have no problem with that. I don't want these little places popping up every corner like they're starting to. I mean, there's only 3 or 4 of them now, but I just don't want that to keep going. If somebody wants to come in here and put in a restaurant, a Union Ale House, a Rockies, you know, at Players, you know, that's what they're for. I agree. So I don't know how we do it. Maybe someday the light will go off and we'll say this is how, but right now I don't see it.
All right, so Kevin, you'll look into the zoning options and.
Yeah, I can reopen that
Legislation.
and do some additional research, and circulate a memo for.
Maybe also look at if a business is not doing the kind of volume, you know, to succeed as what they applied for.
So you're basically, you would probably have to amend the code to say if you're a restaurant, if you're applying for a restaurant special use, that you have to do a certain percentage of
Your main business should be
food service.
food service. If it's not, what is that?
But even my only comment about that is, because, you know, most, at least my understanding is that most restaurants make most of their money on liquor. I mean, they want the liquor, so if they're making most of their money on liquor, even if they're a restaurant, their primary purpose is to serve food, what's the breakdown for a standard restaurant in terms of food
I'd
and
even
liquor?
say if they were 98% liquor and 2% food, as long as they were really doing the volume that says that they're doing something.
Okay.
Right now, it's nothing. I mean, if you look at it, it's literally, some of the locations is almost nothing.
Yeah, I can look into that. I don't have an answer for you right now.
All right, any further discussion? All good, okay.
Okay, next item is the 13 approval of warrants. Madam Clerk?
So expenses for this period, $122,895.10. The 9/29/2017 payroll posting of $137,116.01. September Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund of $25,940.33, and police pension payments of $56,295.02. Total warrants, $342,245.46.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the warrants?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Rosenthal.
Aye.
Alderman Messer.
Aye.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman, see what I missed?
Aye.
Ludwigson.
Aye.
Okay.
Item 14, resident comments, non-agenda matters. Don't believe we have any. Executive session, nothing is scheduled tonight.
Nobody's good, okay. I think that,
I move we adjourn.
all right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.